Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we are going to recap EUG Promotions Event 4, and we are also going to recap Subversiv 7. Was it Battle of the Bands?
Battle of the Brands.
Battle of the Brands. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, doing the co-host.
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Get into the first episode for you in the new podcast set.
Yeah, it is.
Which is awesome. We're almost, I said a lot last week that I was going to fix stuff. I haven't moved any of the screens yet, so I'm still going to have to move around kind of awkwardly, but we're slowly getting there. Really happy with the set. If you don't follow the Grappling Rewind on YouTube or Instagram, give us a follow there. You can see the video version of the podcast on YouTube, or you can actually find kind of news stuff that we post now and again. I'll post the podcast setup once it's complete there on Instagram. Also send us a DM if you got questions or if we might mess up your name, as we're probably inevitably going to do. Running on 5 years now for the show. So before we get into the recaps, we're also going to talk a little about ADCC trials coming up because Asian trials are happening this next week. This is actually the final trials.
And it's in Australia, right?
Yeah, Asian, Australia, and Oceanic trials. It's the final trials.
But they were going to do it in Singapore at one point, and then it got canceled.
This trial has bounced around a little bit.
Yeah.
I think if I'm correct, they had to eliminate one of the trials.
Singapore, I think.
The Singapore trial due to restrictions, and then eventually it didn't rescheduled, and now we're back in Australia for the final trial. Mo talked about after 2019 wanting to do a trial in Australia, and so this is the one. Sydney's now open enough where they can do a trial, they can have international participation. It's because we're going to preview it. We're not previewing it this week, right?
No.
It is next week, though, because we don't have any brackets for it yet.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit about that, but that is happening in a week. That will get us our last entrance as far as trial winners into the tournament. In other ADCC news, there's also the ADCC Open, which is now open for registration. It is happening the Thursday of the World Championships, because World Championships are on Saturday.
Yep.
Opening ceremonies and stuff are on Friday.
Children's divisions and adult divisions and master divisions, which is fun.
And even like executive, it's masters. It goes up.
Just masters.
Just masters 1?
Yeah. No, it's masters. It's 35 and up.
Okay. Does it have any more? Is it 40 and up?
No,
it's just Masters 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's not a Master 1 technically, because
it's 35 and
at
up.
35 you would be a Master 2.
Right. Or executive or senior or whatever you want to call it for whatever tournament. ADCC, they call it Masters, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Those divisions, we talked about that. We're supposed to be capped at 16.
Yeah, and some of them adult
have
pro has like 18.
Yeah.
I forget which weight it was.
Is it the pro? Is it only the pro bracket, or is it just?
No, to my knowledge, what I've heard Mo talk about, he said that they were gonna do all the brackets at a 16-man minimum because they wanted to not overbook the event, basically, because there's going to be a shit ton of kids too. So
basically
by the time
they're running the World Championships in the same arena in a couple days. They don't want to run a 15-hour tournament for your staff that has to go ref the World Championships that day.
Yeah.
So, actually, I put in to do table judging as well.
Oh, nice.
And I think so. You're registered for that.
Yes, I'm registered at female master 65 kilograms.
Nice. And then my coach Rob.
Yeah.
Our coach Rob is also registered for that. Do we have anybody else?
No, it's
in our
just the two of us right now.
The two of you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to judge it. Hopefully, if I get selected to do that,
We've been joking that if all of our luck, we'll get you as our table judge.
I'm not going to score anything. You know me. I'm not going to score.
I know.
You guys have it'll be 8 to 10 seconds of settling. Nah, that was only 6 seconds. They don't get it. Why? It's they're on my team.
Yeah.
They don't get it. So that's how I ref. Whenever I ref a team, whenever I ref a teammate.
So it just means you have to take care of business if Maine's going to be your table judge.
Absolutely, yeah. So because we both did the Class C ref sort at East Coast trials, and then I did it again at West Coast trials to make sure that I was up to par, and I'll read through it and take it super seriously if I get selected for that. But I've put my name to that. If you are certified as a Class C ref or I guess Class A ref, Mo's going to probably talk to you directly. But Mo has had put a big kind of word out to the community to submit your information and name.
They also dropped a couple days ago that they're going to go down to 2 mats on Sunday.
Yes, that was just this week.
Yeah, that was a couple days ago, 2 or 3 days ago.
Mo announced in a live stream and then subsequently in a post that they were, because they basically...
It was 3 mats.
It was 3 mats at ADCC
and they said
2019.
when you're watching 3 mats and they're crazy matches on all 3 mats at the same time, it's very difficult to pay attention to.
Opening second day.
Yeah.
Basically, the first matches on all of those were what the fuck matches. And so I remember walking out this is unfair to me as the viewer, as I was Matt side doing reporting and interviews.
You almost have to be at the very end so you can watch all 3 at the same time.
It was really hard because I remember doing the recap shows. There was so much happening. And I do like Mo's reasoning too. Is basically like you're here for the World Championships.
You're going to be here for a while.
It's going to take longer, but
well,
you're
he said
here
it.
for the
he
event.
said it would only take like 45 minutes longer.
Yeah, and they run pretty expeditiously, and I like it. If there's submissions, they run faster. Like overall, I think I would and one mat I think would be too much. Yeah. But I think 2 mats, it allows you to kind of swap between both. 3 mats, and you can kind of keep your eye on 2 mats.
Yeah.
3 mats, you are missing action.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good thing for the second day.
Because East Coast Trials, I felt like that. I kept on like having to look over left, and I would be trying to watch certain people, and then I'd lose them, and then I'd watch something else, and I'd watch something, and something would happen in front of me here, and then it was always,
Right. So I think 2 mats, I think that's a really good change. And I like that, again, it's ADCC. It's not every 6 months. It's every 2-3 years at this point. Yeah. Like, what's another 2 hours or hour an event for when it's that level of world-class talent? Yeah. I think it's a really good change. I'm excited that is going to happen.
I'm trying to think if he said anything else. I think that was it.
He's talked a lot. I mean, Mo has live streams pretty frequently.
He does live streams all the time.
I love it because
because whenever I see him, I always go into him because they're, I mean, at least
it's insightful. He'll talk about stuff and break news.
He'll talk about all kinds of stuff.
I mean, he talked about the invites, kind of the remaining invites. He talks about that pretty frequently, and so we're finding out more of the invites. Last week we talked about Ryan Hall and Mikey Musmeci are both out with medical stuff. We have a replacement of AJ Agazarm. Do we have a second 66 or 77 kilogram person coming into that? Do you know?
I don't think so. Not that I saw.
I think we just still have AJ Agazarm coming into that, and that was a really good invite. And Mo actually on the broadcast this week talked about why AJ was selected for that, and I thought it was a really reasonable kind of criteria for why AJ had been put there. Again, former medalist, silver medalist, who did trials.
PJ should have got it over him, but whatever.
I mean, I think PJ will probably get in. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
PJ needs to get in.
Yeah, but also PJ can't make 66. AJ's going to make 66. He did trials at 77, but he'll make 66 for the World Championships. PJ ain't getting down to 45.
Yeah.
You can cut a leg off of PJ, he might make it, but not making it. So him and Varela, I think, are the last 2 guys that were really. I think a lot of people are looking to gun for a spot for if there's a 77 drop. They will be the first guys, or some of the first people on that list.
I think there's still one spot for 77.
There might
because they were discussing it.
Yeah,
Mo kept on discussing it because there's a fighter with the last name DeGroot who has a group of people, and whenever he goes live, like all of his fans show up on the live stream and they start talking about you need to invite DeGroot, and it's just like comment after comment about DeGroot, and he's getting annoyed by it because he doesn't know who the hell it is, and it's kind of funny to watch him kind of lose it a little bit.
That's funny. Yeah. Mo's entertaining on the broadcast. So that's the only news. Oh, other news. The last piece of news we have this week before we get into the recap section.
Elder
Cruz got his black belt, and we all in the chat kind of went, yeah, that's very reasonable. Elder Cruz, perennial, top contender for the past couple of years. Technically, he's still a brown belt. Did brown belt worlds. Brown belt worlds is over. Moving on to black. Did he win? He won, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he won brown belt worlds at the weight class. Did he double gold? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm looking him up.
I don't know either. Again, worlds are that show last week was awesome, but it was still a 3-hour show just to cover the black belt finals. So if you didn't hear that show, I think it was a great show. Zach and I broke down all of the black belt finals last week. Elder Cruz won, and then now he gets promoted to black belt. Now we get to see him against the black belt ranks. That's pretty exciting. I'm very, very curious to see what he can do in the gi.
It just looks like his weight, heavyweight. Because it doesn't.
He doesn't have a picture with both.
He doesn't have a picture of.
And usually that's how we find out.
Yeah.
So very, very excited to see that. He will definitely, I think, immediately be a force in that division, and I'm very excited to see, his continued run through the divisions now that he's a black belt. He can fight absolutely anyone. I want to see him fight now.
Yeah.
So that should be fun. Moving on. Any other news we got? Oh, ONE FC also had an article out this week on Grappling Insider talking about continuing to further their divisional expansions for their grappling events.
Oh, yeah.
And basically talked about how, when they initially did Gary versus Shinyaoki 5 years ago, it was and Chatre talked about it not being kind of the response he was hoping for. And then when they did Mikey, it was he goes, oh, yeah, it blew my expectations out of the water. In a little kind of less terms than that, but they are definitely looking to continue to push that. They paid Mikey $50,000,
and they keep on picking up more the top level
Dauper's
guys.
there. I think we announced a couple people about a month ago that they picked up, and looking to continue to build that out. And they were very, very happy with the online response that the Musumeci versus Imanari got.
Covering everybody and they're covering expenses. I mean, why not?
They also talked about how it's more accessible. Like they're on platforms that are more accessible and more viewer friendly, that are more available. YouTube, they talked about, I think that has some of the highest, it's a couple million views on YouTube, a couple million views on Facebook for that match.
You also are bringing in, especially because they jump back and forth to the Muay Thai fights and
the Thai fights
and all
MMA
that,
fights and
then
the cage Muay Thai
kickboxing,
fights.
and then so you're bringing also crowds that probably don't see it as often as others.
But you're also bringing crowds that are pretty hip to a variety of rule sets. Like, hey, on a main card, they will have an MMA fight with a Thai fight, with a kickboxing fight, with a cage Muay Thai fight. Set with 4-ounce gloves. Like, throw a grappling match in there. The guys are like, okay, this is a grappling match.
See, and I like that. I like it. It's a little different when you. The
last couple ones I've watched live have been really, really entertaining, and I appreciate that Chatra's come out and gone, yep, I like where this is going. Mikey Musumeci was probably the most viewed grappling match ever because of all the metrics we have on our platforms, and they've talked about that. You can make jokes about that, but looking at the viewership that they have online, it's got millions and millions of views. That there are a few other grappling matches that get that sort of traction as quickly as that match did, and it was an exciting match and it was fun. I can't wait to see him do more of it. Any other thoughts on that?
Nope, that's it.
All right, let's move on to, what do you want to recap first? It was a big, big weekend of grappling.
We're going to stay with EUG first.
Let's do EUG first. EUG is a bit more straightforward. Subversiv 7. There's a lot of matches on. I think we'll probably kind of pick and choose individual matches to talk about on that one.
Subversiv is a 5 hour long. Was it 5 hours?
Almost 6. It was 5.5 hours on the video, and then the actual last couple minutes of the video was cut off.
Yeah.
Luckily, we watched it live and we saw Duarte win, but
well, I didn't. I was well asleep by that time.
So, but overall, it was a very long event. EUG was about 2 hours, little less than 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
So let's talk about that. That was a 8-man, $10,000 tournament.
Yep. It's 180 pounds in the gi. It's also on Flow. So if you have a Flow account, you can watch it.
Yeah, and it's quick. The matches are all parted out already. We didn't have a results list, so we generated one ourselves. I want to talk about a couple of matches here.
Oh, and the way they bracketed it, I thought was hilarious.
They do it by the hat.
They put it in a hat. They put everybody's name in a hat, and they shook it up, and that's how you figured out your bracket. Which I thought was kind of fun.
That's how they do it, and I think it's very interesting because it eliminates, like,
somebody trying to bracket or weighing a bracket or trying to give somebody the easy side of a bracket, or even the idea that somebody has the easy side of a bracket.
Yeah, and I actually liked how they did that here because it ended up in a way that I would have bracketed this in the first place. Like, you had Rolando Jr. on one side of it, you had Levi Jones Leary and Manuel Ribimar on the other side of it. Those were your front runner seeds for the bracket. Those are the guys with the most accolades, the most titles, and so it ended up in a way that I thought is sort of how it should have been bracketed anyway. But I do like that EUG goes, look, you find out I think it's weigh-in day before, what the bracket is. For us, for coverage, it's a little more difficult, but I do appreciate that, it eliminates that kind of X factor of, like, you pick that out of a hat, this is what it is. It's all kind of chance, as opposed to, you can make matchups a certain way. So what match do you want to talk about first? Let's talk about Levi Jones Leary and Ricardo Lopez. This is a fun one. Levi Jones Leary, and we've seen he's been looking really good recently.
Isn't it Rodrigo Lopez?
What'd I say?
Ricardo.
Yeah, Rodrigo Lopez.
It's Rodrigo.
So I'm looking over my shoulder because, again, the screens for the new setup for the podcast are not where they should be. And so one screen is like to my side behind me. If you're watching the video show, you can watch me keep looking over at it.
Random side note, have you ever noticed a correlation with guys that train in the gi but then do no gi like afterwards? It's like an afterthought that they play a lot of open flat-backed guard.
Yes.
I find that when they transition, when you're like a gi player, and then later in your career you transition to being a no gi player, like your guard game kind of stays almost in a gi based guard system.
Very, very flat on the back.
Yeah.
Very kind of like
it's not
reaching with your legs and kind of relying on your hands to hold the grips and hold them into place versus a lot of
I have a note
guard.
right here because that was my note when I watched him. I was like, he plays exactly the same way, because I was watching all of his no-gi matches leading up to one of the events, and he almost plays.
You're talking about Levi Jones Leary.
Yeah, Levi Jones Leary basically plays the same exact game.
I mean, he plays. That's sort of one of the things we talk about.
It's a little bit different, but it's basically
that's
the same
sort of
game.
one of the overarching things I want to talk about the whole event. And one of the hallmarks of really us covering Levi Jones Leary in the past is that dude plays to the rule set, plays to the IBJJF rule set, and regardless, he will play that rule set if it gets him DQ'd. Like we saw him, he's very, very famously got double DQ'd at Worlds 2020 or 2019 for double pulls.
Yeah.
Like four double pulls, gets double DQ'd because he's unwilling to change the game. We almost saw him at Spider for $100,000 in the finals. The same thing. Like almost get DQ'd there. We saw him here with with the next match with Manuel Ribimar. Like he will come out, he will pull.
Yeah.
He will not try to take you down initially. Like, he will pull. You will have to deal with him on the bottom. He will try to bolo you. He will grab grips.
Yeah.
He may aggressively come to top. Like, he will work a bolo game. He will work a back take game. But, like, you have no bones about what Levi Jones Leary is going to try to do to you.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because...
But it's interesting that most people can't do anything about it.
And that's kind of the more interesting piece for me as a practitioner is that even if you know that Levi Jones Leary is going to do this exact thing, you've watched all the tape on him, you watched instructionals on him, like you know what he's going to do.
He also goes from like 0 to hyperspeed in 2 seconds.
Yeah, he changes and he off times his speed very, very well. In the Lopez match, he sort of gets in front of Lopez, he turns Lopez over and immediately kind of works to his back there for a while, and starts to really put up points on Lopez.
Yeah, and Levi at one point tries to pass. I'm reading my notes and he tries to guard pass at one point, and he takes his back from like a failed guard pass, and I thought that was really a smart
which is something we see him do frequently.
Yeah,
he gets up, I think 6 points on this one.
8
points on this one.
8-0,
and then he ends the match like working to finish the armbar.
Yeah,
and this is something that we saw from Levi in this entire tournament was not like passivity. We did see some of that from him later, and we'll talk about that in the next match with the Ribimar match.
If he's not getting what he wants, he waits.
Yes.
He waits to get exactly what he wants. And he even said it in one of the post-fight interviews. He even said that he's trying to be more patient in positions when he doesn't get what he wants.
Right. And he very much almost seems to rely on opposition from the top.
Yeah.
In order to get going. Like he will not really overextend. Yeah. He's going to counterfight you.
Yeah.
And he will not really overextend or really like make a super hard angle. Like he will wait for the top player to engage his grips. He'll grab typically like either a low side leg lasso or he'll grab like an outside open De La Riva and some sort of control with like a lasso grip on his right hand side.
Yeah.
And for the majority of the matches, that's what he's going to grab.
I think, if I understand it correctly, I think in IBJJF you can get away with a lasso and a spider. If you have lasso on one side and a spider on the other side, you're not technically considered stalling.
Usually, you can technically be stalling from any position.
Yeah.
But as long as you're moving, they give a lot of leeway to the guard player to kind of, as long as they're active and they're moving grips. Less so nowadays. Like, again, 2014 through 2019.
Yeah.
If you were doing anything in the guard, you were good to go for 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they've kind of stopped that a little bit, and I appreciate that. But Levi Jones Leary, in these matches, very much wouldn't turn the gas on, like in a way looking for a submission, until the last minute of the match. And that's what we see here for Lopez. Like I think this match goes 20 more seconds. He probably finishes this armbar. Yeah. But time runs out. Yeah. He's trying to break the grips. He's kicking the grips away. He's in position. He's gotten to to a very solid armbar.
He has the arm even pulled out. It's just he has to get the
He has to break the grip. He has to break the S grip of Lopez's hands, and Lopez has enough time there to fight the grip, and Levi Jones Leary did not attack with enough time left to get the armbar. Yeah. And then we see in his Manuel Ribimar match, there's an interesting rule here for EUG because there are no advantages in EUG. And Miranda and I, we talked about this a bunch in the pre-show. When there's a double pull, the person that comes to top gets 2 points. Yeah. And it wasn't a takedown. It was
it was a double pull, and then
instead of getting the advantage for coming to top, you get 2 points.
Kind of like a sweep. Kind of like, in IBJJF when you sweep yourself. Yeah. Kind of that kind of situation.
But regardless, like they're
normally you have to have some sort of like push forward to get to
normally you have to sweep.
Well,
like
yeah.
this is literally, we saw in a couple matches.
No, I don't know. IBJJF, if you double guard pull and the other person stands, do they get 2 for a sweep?
No, you get the advantage for coming to top.
Oh, okay.
And that's a rule that we saw a little bit ago. But for EUG, because there are no advantages, they give you 2 points.
Okay.
And it was really interesting because Levi Jones Leary, for both his Manuel Ribimar match and in his finals match versus Rolando Jr., gets scored on initially.
Yeah.
Like you know what he's going to do. So Ribimar goes, oh, I know you're going to pull. I'm going to take these easy 2 points because we both pull, and then I stand up and I get 2 points. And because Levi Jones Leary is so hyper focused on that game, and that is his not his only game, but really the only game we see him use in comp with any regularity is that bolo from the bottom game. Ribimar starts off the match taking those 2 points.
So, and then are we moving on to the Ribimar match?
Yeah, we're moving to the Ribimar match. So Lopez match finishes.
Which is semifinals. Yeah,
semifinals. Again, only an 8-person bracket, so we're going to run through Levi's matches, then Rolando's matches, then talk about them in the finals there, because I think that's sort of the most interesting way to talk about this bracket.
And this is the match where he does the standing crucifix.
Yeah. Levi from the bottom has a really interesting kind of like open guard lapel game that is, full disclosure here, I don't know how to describe. Something you have to go and watch.
Yeah.
Very intricate, very like good counters from both the lasso and the spider guard grips. He also will use like an X guard variation. That's kind of what he gets Ribimar over for initially to score the points. Is he kind of hits him with like a variation of like a lasso X guard tech up sweep that Ribimar kind of tries to counter and run away from the single leg being taken up. But Levi Jones Leary continues to keep forward pressure, pushing him over in that transition, and he gets Ribimar down. Ribimar eventually goes to turtle, and then in a really interesting transition, Ribimar like stands up out of the turtle, and Levi in some wizardry.
His legs just kind of grab his forearm, and
he's just there. Like
he's in a crucifix in 2 seconds, and I have no idea how he got there.
As Ribimar standing up, and it was just a wild transition because,
and it's wild also because he did it as he was standing up.
Yeah, like he gets his leg is his low side.
I mean, if he would have missed that, it would have been like fucking.
Ribimar would end up in Ribimar's guard.
It would have been.
Ribimar would end up in his guard.
Well, it would have been like a back flop.
Yeah, it would have been. It would look ungraceful.
Yeah,
but because when Ribimar stands up, Levi Jones takes basically he's attacking Ribimar's turtle. He takes his knee that is closest to the hip. And then as Ribimar stands up, he like folds his chest over and then just like triangles his legs around that arm in a way that like I haven't seen, with a quickness really that I haven't seen.
It's a quickness. I don't think it's complicated. I think he just does it so freaking quick.
I watched it. I tried to slow it down. It's like 4 or 5 frames.
Yeah.
It's like a quarter of a second that he just goes whoop, and he's in this crucifix. And then he has good enough control on the other side of Ribimar's arm here, and that he's like in this standing leg crucifix.
Yeah.
It was a wild like sequence to watch that Levi Jones Leary is so controlled and like so quick to be able to get there and keep his balance as Ribimar is standing up.
Yeah.
Ribimar does something really interesting after that as well. He's very, very confident, very, very patient. And Levi Jones Leary is kind of working for the collar a little bit, sort of looking for some chokes, but he's in a position where he has to hold his own body weight up.
Yeah.
And because he is in the crucifix, he doesn't really have anything to like keep his hips up on Ribimar's arm.
Yeah.
He's not over top of the shoulder, he's like under the arm.
Yeah.
And so he can never really get in a comfortable position to loop his hand through to grab for like a cross collar choke or anything like that. And so Ribimar kind of eventually gets Levi Jones Leary to kind of like shuck him down. Levi Jones Leary starts to take the back. It traps Ribimar's arm.
Yeah, he does like the reverse. We called it a reverse crab ride.
Yeah,
because we couldn't figure out.
This was late. This was earlier. Ribimar goes low and he grabs Levi Jones Leary's pant grip in between his legs.
Yeah, and he holds the pants
and he
down.
holds it.
Yeah,
and functionally like prevents Levi Jones Leary from changing his hip angle at all to continue to take the back. And I was like, that's a really interesting in the moment adjustment to make to prevent like any forward motion from Levi Jones Leary to getting his shoulders up to your shoulders, because you see he's falling off and he's trying to take your back standing. And so if you have that hook, you know that he can't ever move his hip up because you're pushing his hip down with that low side like pant cuff grip. And then Levi Jones Leary does some weird like spladle out that he eventually turns into like a inverted crab ride.
Yeah.
That he tries to get Ribimar's back, and it was overall just a really interesting. It was one of those.
It was a fun match.
One of those matches that you see a sequence and you're like, cool, that is very interesting to look at.
Yeah.
I will probably not see that again for many years, and I will never be able to replicate that.
Yeah, and I have no idea how you even started to begin to do that. So
yeah, but it
was fun to watch.
Very, very interesting match to watch. Eventually, towards the end of it, Levi is playing from guard now. He's up on points, or even points.
They're even.
Yeah, it's 2-2 at this point because it's
but Leary scored last, which in EUG rules it means he wins if he stalls for 2 minutes.
I really like actually because the last if there's an did they implement that rule again? Because they took it out for one event. EUG.
This event, it was last to score wins because that's how Jones Leary won that match because it was 2-2.
Okay, yeah.
Because they had a penalty and the penalty got taken away, and I don't understand how the hell.
Yeah, we were kind of confused about that.
Yeah, that's a little confusing.
Levi Jones Leary spends the last 2.5 minutes working from the guard here.
Well, because he gets his 2, and then he realizes there's 2 minutes left.
Right.
And he stalls.
Yeah, he controls Ribimar. He doesn't really actively look to get under him or like to invert, to take him over, or look for sub.
Because he wants to keep his energy because he knows he's about to go against Ronaldo Jr.
Mm-hmm. The guy that pushes the pace.
Yeah.
So I thought it was an interesting. It was a reasonable strategy. He does get called for a penalty. The penalty gets put on the board, and then I'm not sure. And Jake Watson was doing commentary. Loved Watson on commentary.
And then he said that there was something was going on. Like there was some kind of argument between the refs, and then it was taken away.
Yeah. So and that was really not clear. I wish maybe we'd have a second commentator there to like help talk through it.
And that would have totally changed the whole situation.
Yeah, because Ribimar would have went on then because there would have been a penalty. And so because you're assessed a penalty after the score, the other person would go on, which again, I do like how EUG does that for scoring because it keeps you honest with your activity and it prevents the stall. Or it works to prevent the stall because you now, in an even match, you know you're not going to decision. You know it's going to be whoever, like you know you're losing. Yeah. And so then it incentivizes you to push the pace. But you as the person that scored that's now even, you know you're winning. So it incentivizes you to technically to stall. Yeah. You could also continue to score there, but that's sort of the purpose anyway. Yeah. So he gets called for the stalling. It gets taken away. And then he ends up winning that on last to score. Yeah. Again, I thought it was a good match. I would have given that decision to Levi regardless, probably. Yeah. Just because of the back control, because he kind of worked for the choke. Like he does get the sweep there. Like he did more action. He had more dominant position throughout the match. He did. But it definitely is an interesting. There was an interesting bit of gamesmanship over the rules there, which is something that we've seen from Leary his entire career in black belt. Like,
and you should do that anyway.
Yeah, you're playing for money. Like.
Playing for $10,000.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And but again, it's interesting that we see Levi. We see him do enough here within the rule set, and then do exactly what he has to do, and that is something that we consistently have seen from him. So moving on to the other side of the bracket, we have Rodaldo Jr. versus Shane Shapiro.
Yep.
Ronaldo looked good here.
Yeah, he did.
He was moving. What is this? Was this 15-0?
15-0 with an armbar.
And then an armbar at the end to put a kind of stamp on it.
Yeah.
Ronaldo. Yeah, I called him Rolando for so long.
Rolando?
Yeah. And then people kept DMing me. Kind of like, hey man, that's not his name. And then after like 6 months of that, I was like, it is Ronaldo.
It's Ronaldo.
Ronaldo.
I know, I have it written down.
Yeah. Ronaldo. He pulls guard. And Ronaldo, we know, we've seen him play guard. We've seen him play top. He is known for aggressive, quick style
comment was also
passing.
made that I think 3/4 of this bracket had just done Worlds a couple days before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the week before.
Yeah.
Like Worlds finished on Sunday and this ran on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's like all these guys were probably a little beat up. Also, if you didn't get too beat up at Worlds,
you're still in good shape.
You're in world class, literally in world class shape. You're in Vegas, which isn't that far from Cali in the first place, where Worlds was. So
like 3 hours.
Take a little flight, do a little drive, and you're in Vegas to do this event. Pulls guard, and we see him for his first 2 matches on this side of the bracket play from the guard. and look to sweep from the guard and start scoring from the guard. But he initiates all of his the initial run through this left side of the bracket from the guard.
Yes, he does.
And
like a lasso lapel guard.
Which is, again, something similar that we saw Levi Jones Leary playing on the other side of the bracket.
But yes, he doesn't show his top game at all.
No. Which, again, we know his top game.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something he's keeping. It's not something he's keeping secret that we weren't aware of. But it was just interesting to see him continue to elect to go to play from the guard, which again, I say it like it's this weird thing we never see. We have seen him do that before. And I think every time he does it on the show, I bring it up as he's got a bottom game too. Yeah, he does.
Well,
pull sometimes to play from the bottom.
a lot of jiu-jitsu people have a preference for one or the other, and you can tell the preference, and you can tell when they get on the bottom, they're definitely trying to get up.
Yeah.
They're not trying to play. They're not trying to play and actively play both.
Yeah. Oh no, actually, Austin versus Ribimar was the 15-0 with the armbar in the last second.
No, it's not.
Is it not? Am I wrong about that?
Ronaldo versus Shane Shapiro.
Okay.
Armbar after 15-0. And
it was the rolling armbar from the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Juju one.
The Jujugatame armbar. So he forces the turtle roll and then rolls from kind of the top of the back off the top into the armbar towards the end of the match. And it's just a really nice kind of way to put a stamp on the match, and it's something I really like to see. Guys continuing, even if you're up on points, continue to work for the sub. Yeah. And realistically, if you have a big bracket, you want to get guys out of there quicker because that is less time that you have to be on the mat sapping your energy, depending on what guys had on the other side of the bracket. That can really, we've seen that pretty drastically affect
it affects
how matches go.
Even in trials, it affects them because some of those trials guys get double buys, and then they're in round 2, round 3, and they have guys that have already had 2 or 3 matches.
Cool, you subbed your first guy, and then you didn't sub your second guy, and now I'm coming in fresh. That makes a world of difference, absolutely. So, second match, we see him versus.
Second match is Ronaldo versus Alexander DeJesus.
Yeah. And again,
And I say Jesus just because I like saying that.
I think, was it Jesus or was it Jesus?
It's Jesus.
Okay, it is Jesus. Ronaldo, again, looks good here, gets it done. This is not a sub, right?
No, this is a 0-0 decision.
Yeah.
Ronaldo played from the bottom, but he was attempting to sweep the entire time.
Yeah,
he's got some, he would have gotten advantages in IBJJF for some of the sweeps.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, he has him really open for a lot of it. And really a very, very long range open spider guard, combination guard, but he plays from the collar.
Yeah.
Not from the outside of the lapels or the outside of the arms. And he keeps Jesus very, very open in a lot of this match and gets a couple really close overhead sweeps and some other stuff, but never able to score. Gets a pretty clean decision for this one. And then in the finals, we have Ronaldo Jr. and Levi Jones Leary.
Yes.
And again, we see Levi pull.
Yes.
And Lana goes, oh, cool, I can pull, and they get a top for 2.
Yeah.
And he uses the rule set to his advantage. He games the rules to his advantage and starts the match with 2.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's...
Yeah, that's basically what happens.
Yeah,
because Jones Leary really doesn't pick up the pace until the very end. Mm-hmm. And then he goes from 0 to top speed. And
he does he looks
and he tries
really good in the last minute and a half.
He gets a sweep and I mean, think about gaming the system. If dude has 2, he goes for a sweep the last minute. If he would have got that sweep in the last 30 seconds, he would have came up on 2 and he would have won.
And it's
so I understand the thought process in doing it, but at the same time, I think if Jones Leary would have opened up and done that from the beginning, it would have been a little bit of a different match.
Think the sweep we saw him attempt at the end, he absolutely could have attempted earlier in the match and made it work.
Yeah.
There was nothing technical about that sweep that he would, I think, have needed to change. There was no response that Ronaldo would have done that would have been different than the one he did. He did a beautiful job on it. And then at the end of the match, Ronaldo knows that's all he has to do to win.
Yeah.
And he essentially ends up passing off of it. Levi Jones Leary techs up. He has to overextend on the tech up sweep because he's running out of time. And Ronaldo goes almost out of bounds. He throws his hips up, does a really great job of blocking the hips of Levi Jones Leary, turns the corner a little bit, and then because Levi Jones Leary is below his hips, Ronaldo can change the angle and essentially force him back down and almost ends up in north-south at the end. It doesn't score because time expires, but I think that had Levi Jones Leary initiated that earlier,
yeah,
he wouldn't have had to make that overextension on the tech up. He wouldn't have had to drive from the lower section of the single leg there. He would have been able to get almost up to the knee. He
wouldn't have had to been so desperate. The desperation factor would have went away.
And it's frustrating to me because we see it with him, we see it with Jonta Alves. Like, they are so committed to a certain type of game and a certain way of playing within the rules that I don't feel like we see them showcase
they don't open up
what they can do, and they don't open up in a way. Like, I think this is a absolutely winnable match. I think Levi Jones Leary has won this match before. Probably I think at Purple, but it was just interesting to see him again, like, play by such small margins in the finals here.
Yeah.
Because I think he absolutely could have taken this, given kind of a different tactical approach. But again, it was great to see Ronaldo like know the rules, knew what he had to do, score first based on the rules, and then stave off the really, really great like berimbolo work and open guard work from Levi Jones Leary. We start to see in this match Rolando's passing.
Yes.
And
he does a lot of side by side, like throw by, like
he does like a lot of the Herber Santos stop passing where he just like flops and he drops his hips into you and on you, where it's like he throws your leg by with like an outside Toriando.
I like doing that too, but I'm too small, so it doesn't work the same way. If I was a big dude, it'd be freaking amazing.
But it's like he's so quick with how he does it, and he sprawls his legs all the way back around. There's a couple times he gets like hip to Levi Jones Leary, and then Levi Jones Leary.
It's almost like a pancake pass.
Yeah,
like he did a pancake pass on somebody earlier. I don't remember which.
And it was Subversiv.
Was it Subversiv?
Yeah, it was on Subversiv.
Okay.
We saw a bunch for armbar defense for Subversiv.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was a very kind of fun match. It was just, I wish that we would see Levi open up his game earlier, because I think he has a lot of really, really great techniques to showcase. And like when he gets his bolo work, like when he opens up and like
I think
really
also
goes deep,
if he
gets there.
If he could string them together, it would be almost too much to deal with. Mm-hmm. And I think at points, Ronaldo's passing, he was so relentless in the passing. It was like Leary couldn't get what he needed to get started, and that was the original, like the first problem that Jones Leary came about, was that he was being like thrown from side to side to side, and he could recover his guard every time, but that's not.
But he can't start to get established his grips, and that's again why Ronaldo did a great job there. Like you stay on the offensive as the person with more points. Then you can dictate
and you have a gas tank like he does, and you can just kind of go through.
The tactics of this match were very interesting. I think there's a lot to kind of take away and learn here about both these guys' games and about, again, the game at this weight in general. It is really nice to see Ronaldo play both from the bottom earlier in the match, get the submissions, and from the top play like a really nice tactical match versus someone who has some of the best sweep games in the world in Levi Jones Leary. Like to be able to prevent the berimbolo the way he did while continuing to get around the legs and pass and stay diligent and never overextend the top of his torso over to get swept, or have Levi Jones Leary like come up and invert and get his legs on top. Like really, really great work. And I think overall it was a really fun match between two guys that
it was a fun event
are coming up. Yeah, it was fun, ran quick. So that does it. Any other kind of thoughts on EUG?
No, not at this time.
I really like some of the rule changes here.
I do too.
I actually really do like the double pull come to top is 2 points, because
I know we discussed this. I don't know. There
are ways to game it, but I really like if you kind of use ADCC style rules where it's like the person that is up on points is the one that is forced to engage. Just give me 2 for them pulling. Then they pull and you give me 2. Yeah. but also it forces the player on the bottom that took the better position, because we all admit like guard in jiu-jitsu is
I disagree with you on
in the meta of pro jiu-jitsu at the top level. Typically, the guard player is the one that is winning a lot.
Disagree with that statement.
I mean, that's what numbers say.
I say the top player has.
The top player is in a passing position
in a better
to get around to score 3, but
because
so, but it forces the bottom player to take the position they want without needing to go through the takedown.
I also say this because I play guard, but I don't like guard very much. I'm a top player, so I will disagree with you on that statement.
It forces the person that has elected to take the position on the mat to have to engage and have to work, and they can't. You're not able to stall because you're down on points. It forces the top player, because they are now up on points, to engage, and as a result, typically, I think this rule will force engagement because you have a down player who is on a bottom in a position they want to work from, and a top player that is now mandated by the rules because they're up on points to engage.
Don't get me wrong. I'll take the 2. I'd be completely fine with that. I just don't think it's the greatest.
Moving on, let's talk about Subversiv 7, Battle of the Brands. This was a marijuana-fueled event.
Yes.
That took place.
Marijuana and alternative HGH.
Really? What's
the Bio Plus team?
Oh, that's what it is?
I Googled it because they kept on doing the ads, and the ads, like, I watched this ad like 15 times, and I was like, I need to see what this stuff actually is. And I went and looked it up. It's like $250, and it's like synthetic HGH.
Huh.
And it's oral, which I thought was really weird because like normally you would inject.
It's an injectable item.
So, but it's some sort of like edible product. Like it's like this little tube, and it's synthetic HGH.
I appreciate Subversiv paying out athletes, and I appreciate that like
weed and HGH.
Weed and HGH. There are places for these events and these brands to get noticed. Where do you want to start? So really for this one, this was a 6-hour event. It was a very long event. There were a lot of super fights.
They had a rapper in the middle of it.
They had a
couple rappers, and they had some dancers.
And
they were up there shaking their booty.
It was fun. This event ran real long. This event finished at 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. I watched it. I was having fun. We were watching UFC and this.
I started at 6 o'clock watching the very beginning of it, and so I didn't last that. I got
it. It ran long for the East Coast audience. Man, that is a rough time.
I guess West Coast, it's not that bad when you think about it.
Yeah, but
because when I've went to the West Coast and watched UFC fights, it's always like the UFC fight is over and you still have the rest of the night, and it's like wild.
That's awesome, but. This event ran long. This was basically it's a subversive event. So what it is teams of 3. You have a man over 185, a man under 185, and a woman, typically a heavyweight woman, but not always the case. We had Fionn Davies here, who's not a heavyweight woman, but you can field a woman of whatever size you wish on your team, and it is basically a best of 2.
Enriquez isn't a heavyweight either.
No, you had a couple women.
She's like middle size.
You had a couple women that were not on the heavyweight side of that, but a lot of times you can field. You field a woman in your team, and you want to have a heavyweight, you want to have a lightweight, whatever you want.
I felt like this time around, because they had a lot of last minute replacements, they kind of fudged the weight rules because some of it seemed a little off when it came to weight. Hey. Like it was supposed to be a lightweight person, it didn't look like you know what I mean?
For women?
No, women. Women is a whole nother ball game.
Is the open weight?
Is open, but like with the men,
I thought it was 85 and 85. I thought it was above and under 85.
They originally had his first set of teams, and then they had to switch people in, which is why like Brittany got a spot because Brittany took Brianna St. Marie's spot.
Yeah,
and I think the 2 Rods came in. I don't
Nikki
think they were
J-Rod.
supposed to do it. I think they were late.
No, they were announced. They were announced a while ago. Yeah,
there were a couple replacements.
Yeah,
I heard. It didn't, watching it didn't seem like, it seemed like there were some matches, and it could just be size discrepancy. It could just be that Big Dan is so ginormous, he makes even large men look.
He made Kynan look kind of small when they're matched. So basically this is it's a team battle, so you versus another team, and there were 8 teams in total?
I think 8 teams. There was Red Bowie, and Red Bowie's a CBD company, and then there's Gamblers, which is a jiu-jitsu company. Checkmat.
Yep.
And then 10th Planet Kush Life, which is marijuana. And then Team YM, which I have no idea what that is.
It's a CBD brand.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. And then Revenant Legion.
Yep.
Which is Legion the
Which
gym.
is Legion's team.
Yeah. And I think that was it, right?
That's 6? Or is that 8?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, so 6 teams. Yeah. And so basically you to put your woman against...
no, and there was Gracie Baja BioPro team.
Okay, so there's 8.
And then there's the Insane team, which was the original, which was Alex Enriquez, J-Rod, and...
Nikki Rod.
Yeah,
both
Nikki
Rods.
Rod. Yeah.
So 8 teams. You put your heavyweight against your heavyweight. You put your 85er against your 85er. You put your woman against your woman. It's the best 2 out of 3. So, and then it's fight to win scoring, kind of. And then if it is a split decision after the first round, then it goes to a 2-minute overtime of a set position. And then whoever got the majority decision takes the top position. This will come into play later. So, again, I like it. It's not quintet format where you have to keep going through your team. It is a subversive format, but it is still a team battle. So you're still kind of riding how your team does.
Even if you do lose your match, technically you come back in. if your team wins.
If your team wins. So it's like you can still afford one loss on your team if you have a really tough matchup and your team can still move on. And we see that happen a couple of times, and it happens throughout Subversiv. Because there are so many matches on this, we've tried to cover Subversiv kind of round by round before. It really gets too difficult.
Yeah, it does.
There's a couple of matches. So inevitably at the end, we have team, what was Atos' team name?
Red Bowie.
Red Bowie. Team Red Bowie win. That was Kainan Duarte, Rafael Leguedes, and
Canyon Duarte.
yeah, I said Kainan. Kainan.
Oh,
and Hulk. Yeah, so they inevitably win at the end. I want to kind of spot check and talk about a couple of different matches that we saw throughout the night. Do you want to start with those, or do you want to basically cover like a super fight?
We can just start and go.
Okay, so let's talk about Big Dan, because he's getting a lot of play on who's next.
Yeah, he does.
Versus Kainan Duarte. And again, these are two guys that are now separated by a weight class in ADCC. Kainan is the former plus 99 kilogram champion of ADCC.
Yeah.
And he is moving down to 99 now.
Yeah.
And he's going against Big Dan Manasuri, who is now in at plus 99 as being the European trials winner.
Yeah.
And so these guys are no longer going to meet each other, but Kainan looked amazing versus Dan.
He did.
And Dan
he didn't look like he was scared of Big Dan's game at all. Like there was no like, this is a ginormous man.
Mm-hmm. And this is just a week after getting footlocked at Worlds by Felipe Andrew. Like Big Dan, we know what Big Dan's game is going to be. Like he is going to pull, he is going to look for the heel hook, he is going to go on the outside, he's going to heel hook. Like that's primarily what he's looking at doing. That's what he's looking at doing at Who's Next. That's what he did throughout trials. Like
that's what he does on the show.
That's what his game is. And so Kainan, I was curious to see in this matchup versus a big, strong dude. Again, blue or purple belt in Dan, not a black belt yet, but was kind of going to kind of change his tactics or be a little bit gun shy, given that he got heel hooked by Tim Spriggs, he got heel hooked by Felipe Andrew. Like, what were we, or got leg locked by Felipe Andrew in the gi? What were we going to see him do? And we didn't see him care at all.
No.
He passed, he looked active on top, he just kind of imposed and controlled
him.
And then eventually towards the end of the match,
Big Dan stands up and tries to stand with Duarte, and Duarte's like, no, get back down.
Duarte they really just kind of collar time. I mean, after Kainan has sort of controlled the match on the ground, I think, does he pass? Yeah, he passes.
Yeah, he passes
for length at one point. Like they go to standing. That's really the remainder of the match is just on the feet standing, and you see a lot of like collar tie and plum. And Duarte is visibly probably 4 or 6 inches smaller, or shorter.
Which
than
he's
Dan.
a big dude too. So
yeah, I mean, I interviewed Duarte,
is.
and he dwarfs me. And I'm like, I'm a tiny man.
Yeah.
But like, still, you can look at, if you want to go back and look at the YouTube video of like, if you know how big I am, about 5'7", 145, 150. When I interviewed Duarte at the time at Fight to Win, and at actually ADCC as well, you can see kind of the comparison of how big Duarte is versus that. Big Dan is almost 300 pounds. And kind of standing up with him seems kind of nonplussed. And really, Dan, we never see Dan change level. We never see Dan really snap down, and we actually see Duarte is the one working the snap down and kind of like putting the pressure and pace on Dan, and that was really interesting. And I'm curious to see, because now he's gone against Duarte, a guy of like ADCC champion.
Yeah.
What changes are we going to see to Dan's game after trials and after like this experience in the room with Gordon and John and Mergali at ADCC? Like, what changes are we going to see in the next couple of months to his game, and how much can he really change his game? And now there's more footage. I'm just curious to see how he's going to do.
It's a short period of time to change your game that much.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm just sort of curious because kind of looked, extremely comfortable and dominant versus him in this match. And it just makes you kind of, as we get closer and closer to ADCC, we start to see, what grapplers are going to look like. And I do think that we're going to see some changes from Dan, even in that short amount of time, especially given this match now with a guy at the level, but a weight class below him in ADCC. So that was a very interesting match. I'm not going to lie, I kind of want to jump to Miha Prejovic versus J-Rod. Unless you want to keep going, unless you want to go to Hulk.
That's fine.
Well, let's not do that. We're going to talk about that match. Let's do it in order. Let's do it in reverse order at least. So next match, you want to talk about Fionn Davies versus Geddes, or do you want to talk about Bodoni versus Trator? Or not Trator. Do you want to talk about
Bordoni versus J-Rod?
We can talk about that match.
Okay.
Yeah, all out of order here on Subversiv 7.
Yeah,
so one of the big issues also is that we have notes here, but we took our notes like Superfight notes. We didn't. There is not actually a event.
It's very difficult to watch an event like this, take notes, and then try to create a bracket so that you can make sense out of it.
Yeah.
And then I ran out of room, which led to one page and just a bunch of stuff on it. But if we go into Bordoni versus J-Rod, so Miha got injured.
Yeah, in the match with J-Rod.
With J-Rod.
By J-Rod, by heel hook.
So why don't we go back to that match?
All right, let's go to that match. Give you context for why J-Rod is now on the wrong team.
Yeah, why he switched teams.
Later in this match.
Puts on a rash guard that, who knows?
Miha hits, you've seen it on Instagram probably at this point, a beautiful Harigoshi off of like a tie-up and a body lock from J-Rod from standing. And I was really impressed. You know, the guys at Legion like train jiu-jitsu train judo, and that is on display here. And it's beautiful throw. And I was actually kind of surprised, like, to take a guy like J-Rod down is no easy feat. And then J-Rod later, Miha goes, I'm going to heel hook him now.
Yeah.
And
J-Rod's like, no.
Well, she does a really good job a couple of times. Like, we see it in the Bodoni match and in this match. Like, he looks exactly like his brother with how he clears the knee line. Like, he gets up on his hip, he then dives his knee down, and he hips out, and he pushes your shins and knees away.
Yeah.
And it almost every time will create enough space on the leg to get your knee free.
Yeah.
And it is really interesting to kind of watch what worked so successfully for Nikki Rod back in his 2019 run and 2018 prior to ADCC, working so well for his brother 2-3 weight classes down, essentially. His brother's at 88. Nikki Rod was at plus 99. It's just very interesting to see that same kind of tactic clearing the knee line. And then Miha Prejovic goes into the leg exchange with Nikki Rod and J-Rod. J-Rod goes, I can do heel hooks too.
Yeah.
And just cranks and hurts and taps Miha, but also I think apparently injured him in that match as well. And then J-Rod takes Miha's spot, and we see him versus...
probably his rash guard too.
And his rash guard too, yeah. And we see him versus Giancarlo Bodoni in what was the semifinal match, essentially. Yeah. And I was really, really impressed because these are two guys that are both at 88, that are both trials winners. You have your West Coast trials winner in now purple belt J-Rod versus your black belt East Coast trials winner in Giancarlo Bodoni, who both had amazing runs, but we still have kind of a lot of questions about what J-Rod looks like and like where he struggles and where he excels, and like because he's such a new kind of guy on the scene, we are watching his development in real time, much like we did with his brother in the run up to 2019. And so there are still a lot of questions like, okay, can he be hit by this? Can he be triangled like this? And really diligent passing game on the top.
Yeah, and he passed Bordoni, which is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Especially with how active Bodoni's guard is, the overhook guard. Like, he dealt with all of that really well. He dealt with the same thing Bodoni did to Hulk, like the double hands on the throat and the pressure.
Yeah.
Bodoni hits a really nice armbar that J-Rod, like, very nicely shucks. And then at one point, spins all the way around and almost passes off of. Like, very controlled, very comfortable. And I left this match with, Bodoni definitely won that match based on like the couple submission attempts from the guard and just overall sort of being more in control from the bottom of the match. J-Rod was never able to really like start to impose on top versus the submission attempts of Bodoni. But I left this match going, okay, like J-Rod can absolutely contend with Bodoni.
And J-Rod can probably learn a lot from that match.
Yeah, and we see him, he's 19.
Yeah.
Like, we see him, like, the rate at which he is progressing is much like his brother, very, very impressive. And I'm curious at the B team, like, what he is going to continue to add and take away from that, because every matchup we see like this, we see him take away something and add something, and, like, he continues to improve. Bodoni is the same way, too, at the New Wave camp with Gordon and John and Magali and Big Dan. Like, we see him continue to improve, but we're seeing less changes to his game. We're really seeing him like to use that outside arm drag to get to the back.
Yeah.
J-Rod did a really, really good job of preventing that from being used to take his back.
Yeah.
And overall, like, although Bodoni wins, I took a lot away from this. Like, ooh, J-Rod would have struggled greatly against this guy 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And he was in it the whole time. In a different rule set, this is a winnable match for him. I am very curious to see, now that these guys have gone against each other, they probably won't be bracketed very close and we may only see this at like a semifinals if both of them can make it there. And again, still it's a long shot for 88 ADCC, but it was very interesting. We're starting to see matchups between like people that are at ADCC, that are in the same bracket, and so very, very interesting in that respect. So that is, let's keep going. So Bodoni beats J-Rod.
Yeah.
Then in the finals, we see Bodoni versus Hulk.
Yeah.
And Hulk is on a different level. Again, Hulk is a weight class up.
Yeah.
Hulk is at 99.
Yeah.
No.
No, he's at 88.
Hulk is at 88
We had this
now.
whole conversation.
Yeah, before the show, we had the pre-show.
Yeah, we were discussing the whole bracketing situation.
Yeah, because Atos has moved around a ton.
And there's a bunch of Atos guys at 88.
Yeah.
Which
was Hulk at 99 last time, or was he 88 last time?
I don't know.
I always forget what weight class he's in.
Mo says that he's going to bracket them all together, so they have to go against each other.
Yeah, and we can talk about that this week on the broadcast on the kind of the show for ADCC, because there are 3 Atos guys in the bracket at 88 because they can only meet at the latest in the second round. Yeah. Kind of per the rules of ADCC, you have to bracket 2 of them in the first round. Yeah. And then the winner of that will fight Hinger in the second round, because Hinger is a former medalist.
Mo said that he was going to do Hinger versus Riatolo round 1. And then the winner of that goes against Hulk. That's what he said on his live stream.
Hulk's a medalist. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that's how it turned out. So, and I think that's honestly the matchup we'll see.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Ty versus Hinger. That'll be battle of the Darcy Guillotine.
It'll also be interesting because they've been training together for years.
Because wasn't Hinger a kids coach for a while?
Yeah, he was a kid.
Yeah, he was their coach.
He is still the kids coach, I believe.
So that is so weird to fight your coach at ADCC in the first round.
And I mean, he talks about him all.
You essentially came up under him and Galval.
Yeah.
Essentially. So that'll be wild. So in this match, Hulk with the body lock passing.
Yeah.
And he dropped Hulk. I watch Hulk. There's a couple of guys that I watch for body lock passing nowadays. Hulk is one of the guys that I really enjoy watching how he does it. Yeah. Because he does it really well.
He does it very relentlessly.
Yeah, he does it relentlessly. And he will also do it like a lot of guys. Like we see Nikki Rod and Hulk both body lock pass, but they both body lock pass very differently.
Yeah, they do.
Whereas like Hulk will like lean you over and like trap your legs and jump over, whereas Nikki Rod will just kind of lean into you and on you, and then eventually like kind of almost slowly get past one leg, and then he'll force a mistake. He'll force you to hip down the wrong direction and get over a leg, whereas Hulk will just like push into you and
he just imposes.
He imposes and is more active and more quick in the way that he forces you to turn your hip down and get around your legs. And that's sort of what we see here versus Bodoni.
I think that's also where Hulk can kind of sometimes struggle, is when he is pushing forward and he's being relentless pushing forward, that he has so much dedication to that pass and going that if you know how to beat that pressure in, somebody can get around him.
Yeah. And that's sort of what Bodoni looks to do here. I mean, he looks again to favor that far side arm drag. He turns his shoulders up all the way, and Hulk has a really nice grip around the body lock. But what we saw Bodoni do to Elder Cruz in the earlier match, like at East Coast Trials, and take his back off of that arm drag from that same similar passing style. Hulk is very, very diligent in keeping his hands together, and when he doesn't keep his hands together, he's very, very diligent at tracking your back behind you. So that like you can never make an angle on him to beat him in the drag to get to top. And that's really kind of Hulk imposes at the beginning of this match. He hits a fucking dope double leg where he like lifts Bodoni up into the air and slams him down. Bodoni, to his credit, in midair, grabs onto Hulk and like starts like trying to go for position off of that double leg, but Hulk just, his lift is too high, too strong, too fast, turns him down, slams Bodoni, and then works from the guard. And
it comes to a split decision.
It does, but we have a lot of Bodoni in the guard, like putting double. What do you want to call this joke?
A domestic choke.
Domestic choke. That's what it was. I was like, what's the word we can use on the mic?
Well,
A domestic choke from the guard, and Hulk's like leaning into it, and his face is like turning red. It looks like a tight choke. At one point, the referee like looks and like, "Hey, you're driving your fingers into his neck," and he's like, "No, you're not," and he keeps doing it. But this is a kind of a funny situation because Hulk just like doesn't care.
Yeah, he's like,
about
whatever.
This.
I don't care about that.
And I think it's really interesting because his face is turning a different color. But Bodoni can't finish this choke.
Yeah, because it's not a real choke.
It's not a real choke, and there's nothing behind.
I mean, it is,
there's nothing
but
behind
there's
Hulk's
nothing
head.
behind your head. Like,
it's not a real choke
pushing
from the
yourself
bottom.
into it.
You can't do it from the bottom, and so it forces Bodoni to commit his hands to this choke.
Yeah.
And Hulk doesn't care, so Hulk can kind of continue his passing offense, but Bodoni is stiff-armed and pressed out enough.
So his head's just kind of hanging out.
That Hulk can never get the passing off, and so it's a really weird like stalemate where both guys are like doing something. But neither is going to work because they're both out of position, but they're both just going to ram it into each other. It was just a really interesting kind of situation. It goes to split. I didn't really agree it was a split.
No, I thought Hulk won.
And Hulk also didn't agree it was a split. And then
Hulk definitely hulks it up.
In the rematch, because Hulk got the split, he got to choose what position.
Yeah.
So we picked half guard. I think it was you take half guard, but it was top or bottom, or was it?
It was the person with the most flags gets to pick the position or the
top or
you're
bottom.
top or bottom.
Yeah.
But I think it was always half.
Okay, was half. I didn't remember what they said on commentary.
I know they explained it at some point.
Yeah, I heard the explanation.
The only time I saw it used on this event, it was all half guard.
Yeah,
they didn't use
I think
any
it was top or bottom half. So Bodoni elects, he forced to bottom half, and Hulk immediately goes, yeah, man, I didn't do enough in the first round. I'm going to do enough this round. And just gets to passing and kind of pretty quickly gets around Bodoni's half guard.
Yeah, he gets like a bolo.
Yeah, and then as he's getting the bolo, Bodoni does a good job of like turning down and trying to come up, and Hulk goes behind him with a bolo with that outside like hand grip, pummels his legs, gets Bodoni's back, like almost.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. Yeah, he gets back. He never scores points for it, essentially, because there are no points here.
Yeah.
But I
think he gets like a power half, doesn't he?
Yeah, for a little bit there. And I was like, okay, cool. Hulk puts a stamp on it. That's really all that happens in the 2-minute overtime. Yeah. And Hulk goes, yeah, I did enough this time.
Yeah.
And gets unanimous decision after that. And they take that. But it was really interesting to see, like, guys are kind of a little bit figuring out how to shut Giancarlo's game down.
Yeah.
We saw him out versus Elder Cruz in a pretty controversial match a couple weeks ago on Twisted Church.
Oh, yeah.
The rematch there. Again, it's people are sort of figuring out exactly what Bodoni wants to do, and I'm curious if he's going to continue to add more tools to that, as people like have more and more and more tape on him.
Both the people that you say have that problem, him and Big Dan, both come from the same gym.
Yeah. But again, you have guys that like, there's usually for like gyms that do this, there's like a curve where it's like, it's really good. Guys figure it out. Oh, they get really good at it. And then it's like, you Levi Jones Leary, where it's like, unless you're at the upper echelon, you can't stop his bolo game. Like you can't, like, it doesn't matter what he does. He can pull 3 times and not get the DQ, and he's gonna bolo you and he's gonna get top or he's gonna get your back. Like Musumeci. Like he's gonna do the thing he wants to do on you.
Musumeci is not gonna wrestle.
No. And so it's, but you see these curves happen.
Sad that he's not doing trial or he's not doing championships because I would have liked to see that.
That would have been really, really interesting because
I was just curious how he would do it. Like how
he's going to pull.
Yeah, he's going to pull.
It wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
It'd be Musumeci him pulling. And I guess I hate that we have to wait 2 more years to keep having this discussion about what he would have done. Because we had the same discussion in 2018.
Oh, do we?
Because he got an invite slot in 2018.
Oh.
And we discussed it, and then he got pulled out, and now it's the same thing for 2 more years we talked about it. And the 3rd year we talked about it, and he pulls out again. I'm like, Mikey, I just want to see you in it one time, man, just so I can like put this discussion to bed of like, what would he do? Yeah, look at 2024. That's what he'll do.
Yeah.
Okay, so what other matches do you want to talk about? I'll talk about Fionn Davies versus Rafaela Geddes, the female finals match that we had here. That also, this didn't go overtime. Oh, this did go overtime as well.
This went overtime, yeah.
So this was really
playing a bottom game, and Gordes realizing, I can slam the shit out of him.
Yeah, Geddes did a couple points in this match. Like Fionn, the big moment in this match for me was Fionn throws up a really, really nice armbar, and Fionn again just coming off of her first world title, first
like a
British
straight arm
world
lock,
title,
right?
Or
an armbar.
It was an armbar from the guard. It wasn't really a straight arm lock. It was just like a straight up like armbar from the guard. Okay. And then Geddes realizes, like, I can slam. And Geddes is pretty significantly bigger than Fionn here. Fionn's like a more petite woman. Yeah. And Geddes is, I think, two weight classes above her.
She's probably like, I think she's closer to heavyweight. And Fionn is like either a lightweight or like a feather.
Lightweight.
She's a feather or light.
Feather.
Yeah.
We
So
should
she's
know
like,
this.
She's
We just
probably,
covered it last week.
She's probably like 130, 135, 140.
Yeah.
And Geddes is at least 200.
No, he isn't that
You think
bad.
so?
I don't see that bad. I
Think
think
she's
she's
like
probably
180?
170, 180.
Really?
Yeah. I could be completely wrong. We can look
Yeah.
this up. They competed literally last week in weighing with the gi on.
Yeah, true.
But we can pontificate. So, but you see Geddes realize like, oh, I can slam.
Yeah.
And just like like hard, like
Yeah.
really, really. And it was a slam in a way like you see in MMA.
Yeah.
Where it was like that through the mat, like not like I'm gonna drop you down, but I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna return you into the mat and drive.
The kind that sometimes gets you in trouble because something locks up tighter when they actually get it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people do that and it just tightens up whatever sub they're in.
But Geddes does a really good job. She drives through and then immediately is very... She hits Fionn hard enough to actually open up the submission a little bit. And then we see some great work from Fionn on the bottom, but Geddes is very diligent and imposing. Not a ton of like passing off, but every time Fionn starts to throw something up, Geddes is looking to pass, looking to engage, looking to move where it's just enough. It goes to decision. I was like, okay, Geddes did a lot. Fionn, this is kind of where it's really hard to score in Subversiv and Fight to Win, where it's like you have really big slams on the top, like 2 of them. Yeah. And then you have some attempts on the bottom that were like Geddes defended, but were never like really, they were submission attempts, but they weren't in a position where it's like, I think Geddes going to have to tap to that or like have to really like, no late stage defense. Yeah. And so you have an active top player versus a very active bottom player. How do you score it? Judges score it a split. They go to the next one. And again, Geddes kind of in what Hulk did, but Hulk does it later, realizes, I've got to do a little bit more, really comes out aggressive. We see 2 more big slams. At one point, she has like a cradle on Fionn's head, and she like lifts her and slams, and lifts her and slams, and lifts her and slams like 3 times, and really makes a lot of space for Fionn there, like and pushes her away, like out of the guard a little bit, and like forces Fionn to like disengage from the guard and lets Geddes like, get more attempts to pass. And that was sort of the finals match for the women.
And Fionn wins. Yeah. Fionn did have a bunch of arm lock attempts.
She had a lot of attempts. Yeah. And they were good and they were diligent, and Fionn played like good positional jiu-jitsu and she was active. Geddes had a lot of heavy pressure on top.
And slams.
But never really, did she ever really pass Fionn?
And she never really did a significant submission at all.
Yeah, versus Fionn. And again, in Fight to Win, she's throwing up those submission attempts. And so that gives it to you. Yeah. And I thought it was a very close match. There's a reason it went to overtime. You can definitely score. I'm trying to get out of my head Worlds. Yeah. Because it's like in Worlds, I'm going to score this for the top player. In Subversiv and Fight to Win, I'm going to score this for Fionn. In here, we're in that rule set. Fionn gets this nod here. It was just a really, it's getting my head around new scoring criteria. It was fun. It was a good match. You should go back and watch the match. What other matches do you want to cover here?
Should we go to finals? Finals. Because at that point it was 1-1. Because that was 1 for Fionn's team, which was Team YM, and that was 1 being Hulk for Red Bowie. Yeah. So they go into finals, and it's Trator.
Vinicius Ferreira.
Yeah.
Trator.
Versus Kenyon Duarte.
What'd you call him?
Kenyon?
Kainan Duarte.
I always call him Kenyon.
You always call a bunch of people wrong names. I feel like I hate that I have now become the name guy on the show.
I think I just make up names sometimes when I don't know.
ADCC champion 2019, Kainan Duarte. And dude, Duarte.
Yeah, it was too long of an event for him, and he was just done.
He comes out. Trator comes out. You know how like strong Trator is. Yeah. Like he is a tank of a man. Kainan's also known as being like a tank of a man, but Kainan tie kicks him in the leg to start off, and then does it again and sweeps him off his feet. Yeah. And I went like, oh, this is the Kainan that like scares me and like wins world titles. Yeah. And he's a week off from that.
And it was a $30,000 first place.
Big money too.
Yeah, that's big money. It's $10,000 per person. Yeah. And you have to win that match. So, I mean, he turned it into overdrive, and it was...
Dude, it was impressive. Like, it was... He put a pace on Trator. in a way that we have not seen him.
And then the event cuts out.
Yeah. Well, in the last couple minutes of the final, because the video footage for the replay is only 5.5 hours long.
Yeah.
And the match goes, I think, another 2 minutes after that, and the belts, stuff like that. But kind of just puts a pace on Trattor the entire time, gets to his back, gets these. And like, Trattor is on the defensive the entire time. And I was extremely impressed about that because, like, we know how good Vinicius Ferreira is.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen him just be otherworldly and beat, like, top level guys. So for Kynan to come in Nogi after winning Worlds, and then less than a week later, come into this event versus a guy like Ferreira, who's also, again, coming out of the gi, and look as dominant as he did, was impressive. And he wins it. He gets the title. Yep. They win $30,000. They remain the champion. They were the previous Subversiv champions.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it. We had 2 Atos teams on both events because we had an Atos person win EUG.
Yep.
And we had an Atos team were in Subversiv.
Dude, I mean, Atos is a powerhouse, and they've been a powerhouse for a very long time. And even with the AOJ split 2 years ago, like, we still have, like, Ty Rotolo, Kay Rotolo, still Atos, Hinger, Atos, Kynan, Atos, Geddes, Atos, Hulk, Atos, Andre, Atos.
Yeah.
Like.
Oh, we also have the guy with the machine gun on his chest, or the tank.
Herber Santos is Atos.
He's
now.
Atos.
The guy with the machine gun on his chest in the tank. Yes, Herber Santos is Atos.
I couldn't think of the name. It's 11. It's almost 11. It's 10:30 here, and that's kind of past my bedtime, so I'm a little on the sleepy side.
Yeah, very fun event. You can watch it on Fight. Any other matches you want to cover? There were some really fun matches. We had Nikki Rodriguez versus Sloane Clymer in a really close match where Sloane takes a decision over Rodriguez there.
We had Paige Yvette versus Alex Rodriguez, which was a good match.
Yeah, we had Brittany Elkin versus Geddes. And Elvira Karpenin, both fun matches. Again, the whole fight card was just stacked. It is a very long event, so I don't. Do any of the matches that you really want to cover here?
No, I think we're good.
Go back and watch. It was fun. If you have Fight TV, it should be available on that service, I think, in a month. And then pay-per-view was like $25.
Yeah,
it was fun. Again, I like watching athletes get paid. I like that they have a platform to do it. I like there was also some super fights on it. It was a fun card to watch.
There was also a controversial situation.
There was other shit that happened, like some pro wrestling shit on the card as well.
But it was fun.
It was fun.
It was just a very long event.
Yeah, events ending to 2:30 East Coast time for me is too late. Like I really got to say that on the mic and kind of on the broadcast. Like, that is too late.
Because it started at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So that's
like I would love to see an event like this if they're gonna have as many matches as they're gonna have, and a big, like, professional level tournament like this. I would love to see them do post limbs where it's like the main events are happening.
That's what Fury does.
Yeah.
Well, Fury did.
CFFC does it. Like Bellator used to do it. A lot of events do that as well. I just like that your main card stuff, 10, 11 East Coast time. Like, once you get to midnight for grappling events, it's just really it gets too late.
As a competitor, it kind of sucks too.
Yeah. So
I've done cards where you don't start until like 11:30 at night.
Yeah. It's late rough. And it's fun now and again. Yeah. I just think for a professional level event like this. That's an extremely late start time, especially for us kind of watching on the East Coast. Like, the UFC finished an hour before this.
Yeah, and the UFC normally goes late. Yeah. Like late.
And we had 2 title fights almost go the distance. We had an hour of fights there, and then the UFC finished before the main event started for this. Before the final team started for this.
And this started before the UFC event.
It's very, very long. I would love to see post-limbs here where it's like a lot of the super fights, like, hey, run the Subversive team.
I get part of the reason why they did that is they wanted enough time between the rounds.
Yeah, and the breaks. So you want to give your competitors adequate breaks so that you get a good performance out of them, especially if they had multiple fights in one night.
Yeah.
I totally am all for that. But as a spectator, like, 2:30 is too late for me. It's just like it makes it really, really less enjoyable because it's so late. Like, I'm not really enjoying stuff as much after like 1 in the morning. Like, if a main event for a UFC walks out at 1 a.m., even they walk out at midnight, I'm pretty upset about that East Coast time just because it's like, man, they're going to finish the fight. And if I want to watch any post-fight stuff.
If I'm watching it from home, I'm falling asleep in that main event. And I just paid for
Yeah, and it's awesome.
$70-something
and I'm super excited for it,
yeah.
and that's awesome. But it's like that's really hard. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. I would love to see post limbs and like the main events. The main event, that I'm paying for the pay per view for, like the Atos teams and like the Infinity team and Rodriguez and Fion, like Bodoni, all those like really really top level athletes. See them go a little earlier so that I can enjoy their matches late in the evening. 2 a.m. It's really hard for me to watch Duarte, even as huge of a fan I am. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. Really, that tour match was really late for me.
Yes.
So that's all I got. Anything else we got going on? That is it. We have ADCC West Coast trials coming up. We kind of previewed that in the news section.
Not West Coast.
We have ADCC Asian and Oceanic and Australian trials happening. We kind of previewed that in the news section. We have no brackets out. I assume we're going to get brackets out probably Thursday of this week.
That's what they've seemed to done. Done with the prior events.
Yeah,
they use Flow Arena and it shows up pretty fast.
Yeah, so we should have that soon. Again, there's a lot of people I'm curious if we're seeing Isaac Michael do that. There's a lot of U.S. based grapplers.
Levi Jones Leary is supposed to do it.
Yeah, I assume he's going to do it. I'm curious to what weight class he does because he was at 85 for this one. I'm curious to see if he was going to do.
It was 180.
Sorry, he was at 80. Yeah, I'm curious to see if he's going to go to 77. Yeah. Versus go to 88 because I don't think he's.
I thought he always went closer to 77.
Yeah, so did I.
He seemed a little bit smaller in this bracket too.
And so that's curious. I'm trying to think of other big Australian talent and Asian talent, and Oceanic talent. The Asian talent's fun. I'm curious to see if we'll see Robert Whitaker come out again. I doubt we'll see that. I'm always really surprised by who we get in those brackets, and so Thursday will be a pretty exciting day.
Isn't Russia considered part of Asia?
Depends on where you are in Russia.
Oh, okay.
It is on the Eurasian steppe. So certain parts of Russia are going to be in Asia. Certain parts of Russia are going to be in the European trials. I think
we
Russia
can get the whole Mongolian northern.
Those are typically
that whole Russian.
Those
area.
are typically in the in the Asian Oceanic trials. But I am.
Because that's what always surprises me. Because when I'm thinking of Asian trials.
Russian trials. I thought Russian was in the European trials.
Maybe it was.
I believe that is the case.
Okay.
Because I think Rustam was the European trials.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong about that. I should know that, but I do not know. I can check that tonight, actually. I'll look at that for trials winners and just see where they're coming from. But
now I was just thinking geography-wise.
Yeah,
technically they consider Russia
Asia,
technically, which always confuses me.
Yeah, well, because it's a supercontinent. It's a super country.
It's kind of its own thing.
It covers a very, very large landmass.
It's kind of like Australia.
Yeah,
because it has a variety of different people too. It's not like it's
and climate and it's the U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii. You're technically it's a very, very large spanning area and country. Technically, it's one tectonic plate, but there's that. So that should be next week. I'm very excited for that. You got anything fun? You're prepping for DC.
Yeah, DC Open.
Yeah. I'm prepping to yell at people for that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
I think that's it for right now. I don't have anything else going on.
And you got the Open coming up, so.
Oh, my 40th birthday's coming up.
Hey.
Okay.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I get to be old.
Hey,
I'm old.
Good for you. You made it. So, all right. Well, as always in the show, I'm your host, Maine. My co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling. We're on to see the map and what it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.